just in kind of terms of details, from suggested, from level 2 you'd have like sort of civil service, so these are basically staff, collating research and reports, etc. Obviously making their decisions, well they may in their councils, but they'd be workers, so that's just normal like ParPolity, so workers' councils are civil servants. So the idea again, like I said, about self-management being the principle, so you get a say over decision to the degree that it affects you. So decision making, so really for participatory polity, I guess like some decisions could be consensus, but others could be majority rule. So the idea of consensus, I guess most is preferable, and deliberative bodies are useful for consensus. But yeah, so consensus tries to avoid this kind of tyranny of the majority. So it respects the minority's rights. But at the same time, you have this problem with consensus in that a minority then can actually become a tyranny of the minority. So say, for instance, you have like 90% of the public are in favour of the right to abortion, and then like you get a load of undecided people, and then like 1% that say no, they feel really strongly that it's just wrong always under any circumstances. Then you can have a situation with consensus where actually there's a tyranny on the 90%, caused by the 1%. So society is complex, and you could argue that consensus should be preferable, but sometimes on some issues you might have to have majority rule. But these are kind of specific, relatively specific details. So yeah, in terms of decision making at different levels, so you can have a higher level voting and deciding, or you could just have a high level who just deliberates and then actually sends the decision back to the lower level. Now they may do this, like say for instance, if the vote's really close or if it's a really contentious issue. Another suggested kind of system would be to let lower levels petition higher levels. So anytime that an issue is really contentious, say the high level doesn't send it down, if they get like enough signatures, then the lower level can get the right to vote on it. So yeah, these are just some kind of little extra bits in there. In terms of executive functioning, there's not kind of that much executive if we kind of take for granted that we have something like a ParPolity in this good society, there's nothing like that much to do in terms of executive functioning. So I guess an important thing would be like particular economic institutions that have like extra kind of powers. So something like NHS or food safety standards or something like that. They would be one of the things the executive function would do would be to grant these special. They would be organised the same way as any other workplace. So nested workers' councils and balanced job complexes, etc. But they're kind of different from other workplaces in that they have some extra kind of power. So they might have the power to I don't know, with food safety, inspect another workplace. The workplace hopefully would be in a ParPolity would be giving out food that doesn't make you ill, hopefully, because they don't have the motivation for profit and stuff to do that kind of sloppy stuff. But it's possible that something like that could occur. So yeah, these are kind of the more kind of executive functions that you would expect. Okay, so coming to the end, the judicial system. So here you have the process of judicial review. So people can appeal to the judicial system to review particular laws. So the judicial review is something that we kind of have in some other countries as well. So this again is to kind of avoid abuse of minorities mainly. But yeah, so judicial review would be in there. Criminal justice, so this is like how you deal with antisocial behaviour, people violating the norms that everyone's voted on. So these aren't norms that just some powerful people think is a good idea. So here you have issues to do with police work. So I guess from participatory economy, you'd organise police, and this one's open for some debate. I'd be interested in what people think. But you can organise police into just the same way as any other workplace. So nested workplace type councils for police. And then legal advocates, so lawyers. So I'm talking about all the really popular people here. So with legal advocates, would you need legal advocates in a participatory polity? And I guess at the moment, no one can really come up with anything that's better, just because you want everyone to be able to kind of argue their case as well as anyone else. So legal advocate seems to be one of those things that no one's come up with a better alternative. If someone does, and I'd really like to hear about that. And then civil adjudication, so how do you resolve disputes amongst different individuals? So, yeah, didn't think you'd see a picture of Milton Friedman, I bet. So here's that lovable rogue. So here's a nice little quote. The kind of economic organisation that provides economic freedom directly, namely competitive capitalism, also promotes political freedom because it separates economic power from political power, and in this way enables the one to offset the other. Of course that quote's entirely, incorrect, but what he does kind of note is this kind of interplay between political systems and economic systems. And for those that haven't been to the Paracon talk or haven't read Paracon, then I suggest it would be useful because it's quite hard to understand. Society is complex enough, but it's quite hard to understand alternative institutions that fundamentally interact with other alternative institutions. It's quite hard to understand and assess, but he's correct about how they interact. So you can consider participatory polity and Paracon as being kind of partners in social organisation, as it were. So for those that don't know about Paracon, it has a similar nested council structure. It has workers' councils and also consumer councils. So the kind of councils in ParPolity are supposed to be adjoined to the consumer councils. So yeah, that's just a kind of thing on that. Okay, so in summary, PPS, as Mark said, are interested in the ABCs of social change. So this idea of developing knowledge, but also vision. So our strategy can be informed in terms of we know where we want to get to. The importance of alternative institutions, so we're for something, can we overcome kind of there is an alternative ideology. And then gone over some of the functions of a polity and hopefully make the point that there are things in the society, in good society, that will still need to be taken care of. Outline some types of polity, so Marxist-Leninism, representative democracy, referendum democracy, autonomous communities, and participatory polity. And then I looked at some values for a good polity, which were basically the same as Paracon. So solidarity, equity, diversity, self-management. Then kind of explored this idea of nested councils, and then spoke about how political sphere and the economic sphere overlap, of course. So quickly, just a little bit on strategy, so that was the other point, knowledge, vision and strategy. Just some kind of general kind of points here. Strategy, of course, is context dependent. So having a diversity of tactics is useful. It's not just about always do it. My background's in kind of like global justice groups and also black community groups, and sometimes I've been in groups where it's like whatever happens, it's a petition, or whatever happens, it's a march. It's like you didn't even need to talk about it. It was just that was it. So the idea of diversity of tactics, of course. This notion of non-reformist reform, which Michael Albert talks about, which what's that? Yeah, so I think this is a really important distinction for social change anyway. So the idea that...
Sorry, are you talking about now strategy to achieve this utopia you're talking about, or a strategy within this situation? I'm not quite clear.
This is a strategy for social change, so yeah, okay. The idea would be, to achieve any kind of improvement in social change, strategy is of course important. And yeah, in particular, if we're trying to bring about a participatory type polity or participatory economy, then yeah, of course, relates to this. Yeah. So yeah, this idea of non-reformist reforms, basically the notion that you sometimes get people who say, raising the minimum wage, it's just a reform, that's reformist. What we want is radical change.